Keep it coming. Push, 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 push. Push, Max. Let's go. One, rest.
Hey everyone, my name is Jonah Rosner. I'm currently a sports scientist, performance coach, running coach, do it all, content creator based in New York City and also Austin, Texas a little bit. My background is I finished up a career working as a sports scientist, performance coach in the NFL, MLS, Division One college sports, football and basketball, and now I run my own business here called Marathon Science, where we have a media business or newsletter, Instagram, all of that. We have community businesses, so we have major training groups where we offer running specific training programs, strength programs, and then we have some data science related businesses as well too, and some AI businesses. So our key clientele is I mostly now work with runners from new runners all the way to elite marathon runners, specifically marathon runners, but also individuals running the first 5K all the way up to half marathons or full marathon. And we help them with their running, but also a lot of strength training, supplementation, nutrition, maybe data analysis. And then we also now work with a lot of hybrid athletes or individuals who want to run and lift. And our clientele is a really nice, unique mix where we get those elite runners and athletes, but also individuals who want to run and lift with performance goals. Maybe they want to run a major marathon, but they also want to make sure they're staying healthy and have specific longevity goals as well. And yeah, so we do it all from that standpoint, but really exciting. We offer them community, like I mentioned, strength plans, running plans, endurance plans based on their goals, potentially some data analysis help, and then also like education. Um, so today we have a really exciting case study where I'm going to talk about a case study with an elite marathon runner who I've been working with from a strength training standpoint. And the title of the presentation, what we're going to be talking about today, is improving InRace durability in an elite marathon runner through strength training, a very specific case study. And we'll go over durability a little bit here now and why it matters so much for marathon runners. It's a very hot topic at the moment. So the background slash problem is we have a runner, a good friend of mine now here in New York City. He's a sub 215 male marathoner, so that's considered elite. He runs 26.2 miles in less than 2 hours and 15 minutes. I think his personal best now is 2 hours and 14 minutes. So because of that time, he qualified for the USA Olympic trials, which you just need to run less than 2 hours and 18 minutes to qualify for. He didn't actually make the Olympics because to do that for the USA now, you need to essentially be running something less than 210, but yeah, still an elite runner, extremely fast. The interesting thing about this runner is that he actually has no prior strength training experience. He'll only grow up doing a ton of long distance running, never really experimented with any kind of strength training to improve his performance, so it's actually very hesitant of it. So the problem though with him that he kept running into was, and the reason he came to me is he kept having a consistent performance tail off in the final stages of his marathons. So he would get to mile 20 and he essentially his pace would drop significantly, or mile 17 or 18, and this would happen consistently. And this is natural as we accumulate fatigue throughout a race. You're gonna slow down a little bit just because of classic fatigue mechanisms. But for him, he noticed he would have a much larger drop off than some of his competitors, which was interesting. And it's interesting because we see this new topic coming out in elite marathon or any kind of endurance performance that lasts, we would say, longer than 2 hours, or right around that cusp, 2 hours or longer, called durability. And I have a good picture of it up here in that top right of that slide where you see a runner A versus runner B. And what we see is that some of these elite marathon runners, for example, is it's not about your physiology in a fresh state. It's what happens to you after mile 20, or after you've been running for 90 minutes to 2 hours. And what we see is that we have like thresholds, VO2 max, running efficiency, or your economy. The best marathon runners, something that really separates them, it's not only their ability to have a high lactate threshold, VO2 max in a fresh state, but we see less decay throughout a race. So maybe a sub-elite marathoner would have a very large dip in their lactate threshold or VO2 max or running economy would tail off by 10, whatever, a very large percentile later in the race. Where an elite runner would only see a few percentage drops. So it's interesting where he anecdotally thought he was struggling a lot with this durability factor. And from an anecdotal standpoint, he would say that by the time he got to this latter mileage in the race, he would get a lot of lower body muscular fatigue. And he perceptually would say, I think my form keeps breaking down. My legs would really start to hurt. And he felt like it wasn't as much as a cardiovascular limitation or a metabolic limitation. It was more just like, I'm starting to feel really tired from a lower body standpoint, and that's making me slow down, and my legs really hurt. Again, fatigue is all related, that perception versus metabolic versus neuromuscular. But it was interesting to hear that he felt it was very much a muscular sensation. So have some good graphics here where at mile 20, his calves, for example, would just give out on him. So now that we have that background set, we'll talk a little bit about his baseline data. Again, he's going to remain anonymous for the sake of the presentation. So he's an elite level runner. So his VO2 max is 78. I had tested him several times. 78, in my opinion, for what he was trying to do was probably more than enough from a VO2 max standpoint. Again, probably most of those runners have VO2 max there, if not higher. So I think that was really interesting. It says lactate thresholds. It's very close to his VO2 max at 92%. A few times, sometimes it was 94%. With this testing, you'll see a little bit differences each time you test. But essentially, what we know is that, as you can see from the graph here, where we have above there, that his VO2 max is really high, and his lactate threshold also sits very high, very close to his VO2 max. And we know that's a classic adaptation to endurance running performance, where as we accumulate volume over years of consistent training, our lactate threshold, or that metabolic steady state, moves close to the VO2 max, and that's a characteristic of elite runners because that means they can hold a very high percentage of their VO2 max pace for the marathon. It's going to let them run faster. So we also tested his running economy. Running economy essentially is just how much energy it costs you to run a certain pace. So we know the best marathoners, the best distance runners, they're very efficient. So what does that mean? It allows them to run their marathon pace or these paces for very low energetic costs, so very low oxygen costs, for example, is typically how we define running economy. And that's going to let them run that pace for a long time because they're very efficient, and that's going to lead to elite marathon performance. So his running economy or his efficiency was really good when he was fresh. We tested him. Again, not going to go over some of the specific numbers. They're not as important. These numbers aren't actually what his are, but for the sake of his identity. But his running economy, his efficiency was really good when it was fresh. And then when we tested him at a actual marathon effort, after 90 minutes of running, we actually brought him back in the lab. He ran for 90 minutes at a marathon pace. We brought him back in the lab, and we saw a significant decline in his actual running economy, which is that measure of durability, right? So now he's been running at a marathon effort for 90 minutes, and we see his running economy decrease actually by more than 3 to 4%. It was sometimes like 5, 6%. So he sees a sharp decline in his running efficiency after he's been running at a marathon effort for a long time. And from an observation standpoint, and we see that kind of graphically here with that large deterioration, he gets to that critical fatigue zone. His running economy starts going up, which means it's getting worse as he gets very tired. Observation standpoint, his lower body muscular fatigue really did correlate with his reduced running economy, which we actually measured. So then the question becomes, okay, we decided that strength training was an intervention we want to do with him. It's a novel stimulus for him. He's been running for an extremely long time. He has that dialed in with the coach, but he's never tried strength training. And the reason we decided to go with this is there's some novel research coming out from a great group, Michelle Zanini, talking about how strength training, if you think about this anecdotally, may help a running durability later in a race. And so why is that? We know from strength training you get some neurological and structural adaptations, and these neurological adaptations are probably going to improve your neuromuscular efficiency or how your muscle fires, how much of the muscle you activate. So essentially, if I can activate less muscle because every muscle fiber is stronger, I'm going to activate a smaller proportion of the muscle for every step I make in a marathon. That potentially can improve my efficiency, right? And reduce my energetic cost. We know that heavy strength training can improve tendon stiffness, increase muscle force production. All these structural and neurological factors probably can improve running economy. We have some decent research about that, especially under fatigue. Because if you think about if every step in a marathon is a smaller percentage of your newfound maximum force, or you're more efficient in running every single one of those steps, that should lead to less fatigue accumulation throughout the marathon. And that should potentially allow you to be fresher by mile 20. And that was our hypothesis. So the hypothesis with him was this improved lower body strength could improve or could reduce this fatigue related form breakdown that he sees towards mile 20 anecdotally and improve the durability or his running economy. The paper is listed down below. That's a really good paper. I highly recommend you read it. And then over here to the right, we just have some of how strength and training can impact running performance. So benefits from a neuromuscular efficiency standpoint, you may become better at neuromuscular motor unit recruitment, improve your muscle coordination, um, faster force development, and then all of those things could lead to less neurofatigue potentially. If someone has a greater maximum force production, then again, they may be able to activate less motor units throughout the marathon. That can help reduce fatigue. Tendon stiffness, we know tendon is going to help from an energy efficiency standpoint, potentially how the muscles of the calf, if we have a more, stiff Achilles, then the calf musculature tends to also act more optimally or be more efficient when it's running. So that can improve economy. Not so sure about the injury risk. That one's a little up in the air. And yeah, again, oxygen consumption is going to go down, running economy improve theoretically from strength training. So the next thing we're going to talk about then is why strength training. And so the program details were, we already talked about why strength training, but the program details were, it was a 12-week program where we did two sessions per week. Each one was 40 minutes or less, very low duration. We went for low reps, heavy weight or moderate weight for power training or plyometrics. So everything was really focused on quality with low volume. And so you could see an example day up here where I have day two. He did some trap bar deadlifts, Smith machine split squats, some plyos, drop drops, calf stuff. So the key exercises were plyos, heavy lifts, leg presses, all very heavy for low reps, for example. And we actually did a ton of isometrics. We really like calf isometrics for the runners we work with. These heavy calf isometrics where it's a 4 second maximum push, a classic ankle iso push, 4 seconds rest, and repeat for a few rounds, rest, do it again. And we know we have some good evidence now that those actually lead. So here's an example: ankle iso push lead to improved Achilles stiffness and calf strength, which actually there's some good research shows leads to improved soleus contraction efficiency, which actually leads to improved running economy. So that was a nerdy way of saying we think that these calf specific isometrics are going to be really beneficial for running economy in distance runners, and also if we increase the calf strength, it should improve that muscle durability later in the race. Gradually overloaded. We stayed far away from failure, so they always had he always had 4 reps left in the take because we just didn't want to create a lot of muscular fatigue that could hurt his runs. The strength sessions were always on the same day as a hard track session or a long run. That way, we kept the hard days hard, the easy days easy. I'm going to talk a little more about how we scheduled that here shortly. So yeah, the monitoring and the challenges. The way we scheduled the lifts, first of all, as I just said, Tuesday would have a hard run plus a lift later that day. So the runs would always be in the morning. So the key session was first, the high quality session of the run. And then later that day, he would lift. It would typically be 6 hours in between just to give him some time to recover before the lift occurred, get some nutrition in. And then that long run on Saturday as well. So yeah, plenty of time in between, kept the hard days hard. And in between those, there would typically be a lot of easy running. He would have some moderate running sometimes in between on Thursday, but we just gave him plenty of time between those big days to recover. And we really thought this was going to allow him to recover from the strength sessions without hurting any key quality runs, since he would have at least 2, sometimes 3 days before his next key session after the running. From a monitoring standpoint, we actually didn't do a ton. We did some RP questionnaires, anecdotal feedback. I got him to do a little HRV. We actually didn't pay a ton of attention to that, but a lot of it was just based on how he was feeling. He definitely got sore at first, but over time he bought in more and more. And he really bought in. He trusted what we were doing. So if there was ever a day he was super sore, he may change the running or the lifting a little bit. We would cut the volume, but overall, we always had a ton of challenges. And I think that is because we really dialed in the scheduling with the hard days hard and easy days easy. So yeah, the challenges faced, a little bit of challenges faced with balancing the strength gains while running so much, just to make sure we avoid overtraining or injury. But especially when we first created the novel strength training stimuli, we dialed back the runs a little bit those first couple of weeks, and I think that really helped. Okay, moving on here. Results such improvements. After the 12 weeks of the strength training intervention, we saw huge gains. So we did force plate testing alongside the initial metabolic testing. And then we did force plate testing again, a standardized classic protocol, some isometric pulls, mid isometric thigh pulls, several reps of everything, taking the averages, some isometric tests, calf iso push, some counter movement jumps on force plates as well. Some of the cool things we saw, again, this is probably expected for someone who's never done strength training before, like his first time ever in the weight room. 14% increase in maximum force on the mid isometric pull. I actually think it probably was higher than that. We did a few reps, but he just wasn't great at the test, but he definitely got stronger. So we could say that's his max strength, right? So his max strength, what, at probably 14%, which is a good amount, actually. 24% increase in peak power output on a counter movement jump from the force plate. Again, never had done any kind of explosive plyometrics for low reps, high quality before. Never any kind of like trap bar explosive lifting stuff we were doing. So 24% increase in peak power lower body. That's pretty cool. And then actually the really cool one, because he had never done any kind of calf strengthening work before, we did a ton of calf isometrics, as I said, some regular heavy calf strengthening. We saw a 31% increase in ankle isometric force, which I think is awesome. I mean, you look at distance running, the calf musculature takes on and absorbs so much force, increasing the maximum force capacity of those tissues. I think is going to be huge and improve his running durability. And then, yeah, metabolic testing. His running economy improved by 3 to 4% after that prolonged effort. So before we had originally saw like that 4 to 6% decline in running economy, we only saw like a 2% decline, 1 to 2% decline after 90 minutes, which is to be expected after some fatigue. But long story short, we saw a huge improvement in his durability. So his running economy tailed off less after 90 minutes of running. Before it was 4 to 6, then it was like 2 to 4, right? So he improved his running economy after 9 minutes of running by 3 to 4%, which is really cool. Subjective feedback, he felt a lot stronger, and he indicated reduced leg fatigue and form breakdown at that mile 20 mark, which is what he complained at before. So that's good, kind of what we expected. So the critical analysis is the strength training rationale. It's supported by research, but limited by actual practical studies on marathon specific durability. So we tried to do that there. We thought it went pretty well. They anticipated pitfalls if you are going to do this. The risk of interfering with running adaptations, which we thought that by scheduling it the way we did, that it really allowed him to recover and make sure he was still fresh for his running sessions, which he perceptually and anecdotally said, yeah, I feel good for my running session. So that was a big win. The other thing we did see from a pitfall standpoint, he was a little hesitant at first, which most runners are, to be new to lifting. But after showing them the potential benefits, I think really staying away from failure, trying to control for fatigue, he just had a lot of buy-in. Let's see what we got here. So the key learnings was his strength training improved his durability without compromising running performance, which was a huge win. His running performance theoretically went up, especially durability. He reported reduced muscular fatigue after a prolonged effort. He reported less form breakdown. So overall, he felt better. And that's the big win, right? He thought strength training improved his durability perceptually, and we had some evidence to show it as well. Future considerations, we should probably explore some more advanced progression models or additional exercises now that he's a little adapted. This was a very basic strength training program, in my opinion. He's so new that he really didn't need a ton of new adaptations. But I think as one progresses within the strength training as a distance runner, we may just need to think about how we want to progress everything while also not overloading the running. And the other drawback here was we actually didn't have him run a marathon, right? Like now we want to see, does this actually lead to improved marathon performance? And hopefully I can report back on that soon. Last but not least, the summary and key takeaways. So the key results is that from this athlete who's an elite level marathon runner who had never lifted before, we saw elite neuromuscular capacity. So maximum force, max strength, peak power, ankle force, which is key for running, in my opinion, calf strength all right up in this elite distance runner, which should directly improve performance, hypothetically in my book. And we did see that 3 to 4 increase in running economy. Why he was fatigued. So his running economy just didn't decrease as much. 3 to 4% improvement after 9 minutes of running, probably because of enhanced efficiency, muscle contraction, whatever you want to say. Reduced form breakdown. He felt less perceptual fatigue in the long runs. He thought his form broke down less. So practical applications. If you're working with high-level runners, I probably would incorporate strength training that focuses on increasing maximum strength, plyometrics, and a lot of calf and ankle specific isos or work just to improve the key strength and power of those structures since they're so critical for distance running. Yeah, I would probably just recommend 2 sessions per week. During the competition period, I would go maybe to 1 session as you taper. But yeah, just 2 sessions per week is probably all they need. Those heavy lifts, short durations, like we said. Make sure you never do it the day before a key like track session or log run. I'd like to do it, keep the hard days hard after those key sessions. So if they had a key session in the morning, we would do it later in the day. And then we just some monitoring. A lot of it was more like you could say you can use video analysis or whatever, and people do that to monitor fatigue. But for us, there's a lot of it just subjectively like, hey, how did you feel? Did he feel okay? And you can use whatever technology you want, but I still think perception is really important. If you're an athlete, improved durability probably is going to matter a lot, and strength training could be a key factor to help improve that durability later in the race if you keep tailing off later in the race. For coaches, I just highly recommend strength training for runners. And historically, we haven't had a ton of evidence for why it may help. It probably does improve running economy, but we see this new metric now where it's going to improve the runner's ability later in the race as well, which is key for fast marathons. So yeah, that's it. If you guys have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm going to share all my info at the bottom of this video. But Jonah Rosner, jarperformancetraining@gmail.com. But the best way to contact me is actually through my Instagram, which is Rosner Performance, ROSNER Performance, and my newsletter, which is just Marathon Science. And I'll make sure all the links are in the video descriptions. Thanks, guys.
Go, 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 go. Keep it coming. Push, 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 push. Push, Max. Let's go. 1, rest.